Good morning, everyone. I am most proud to introduce my colleague and friend Ingrid M. Canady, Executive Director of the State Education Resource Center and a committed and passionate learner and transformational leader. Ingrid migrated to the United States from Costa Rica in 1989 and became a U.S. citizen in 1997. Her early experience has shaped her educational career from the start, first as a Head Start educator in the city of Waterbury. She graduated from Northwestern Community College with an associate's degree in early childhood education. She then earned her bachelor's, master's, and six-year educational leadership degrees from Central Connecticut State University and is currently pursuing her doctoral degree in leadership and learning in organizations from Vanderbilt University Peabody College. Ingrid joined CIAC in 2003 as a member of the consulting team. She quickly became an active contributor in CIAC's journey to examine the hidden realities of institutionalized racism and its impact in today's classrooms. She would serve as a workforce development coordinator and assistant director and interim executive director before the CIAC Board of Directors unanimously voted her permanent executive director in 2016. Over the years, Ingrid has demonstrated the importance of culturally conscious leadership to promote learning environments in which all children are seen and heard. She is sought after as a facilitator, presenter, and speaker locally and nationally. Ingrid has received many accolades for her work, most recently Equity Champion of the Year from the Connecticut Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents, known as CAS-CIAC, and a special resolution in her honor by the State Board of Education. This reflects a growing recognition of Ingrid's powerful influence on building a sense of urgency, ensuring that Connecticut provides an equitable and accessible education for all of its students. It is truly my pleasure to introduce Ingrid to all of you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much for that introduction. As you were reading the introduction, I became a bit overwhelmed. So for those of you in this space today who know me, you know how emotional I can be. So I'm going to center myself this morning. So again, thank you so much. As Steve mentioned, my name is Ingrid Canady, and I have had the honor to be a member of the CIAC team since 2003. And on behalf of the CIAC Board of Directors and every member of the CIAC team, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to the Connecticut Association of Schools, your Executive Director, Glenn Lungarini, the administrative team, and the full staff, and the members of the Equity Committee for inviting me to provide you with remarks this morning. I am truly honored by the invitation. So I'm going to share my screen because I want to walk us through a couple of points that I would like to make. I hope you are able to see my screen. So the first piece that I would like to do actually is beginning with the title, Education Summit, Virtual Education Summit Part 2, Inclusive Excellence. And let me tell you what I read. This is what I read. Educational equity as a way to achieve inclusive excellence. And I like to always start with the title because of what the Connecticut Association of Schools have done today. You have started with the student's voice. Point one, that's the first part about inclusiveness. It's about engaging those ones who we serve. So to be inclusive is to acknowledge who do we serve. And we serve our young people, our students. So kudos, because their voice and perspective need to be in the space first, priority number one. Then I would like to, for the next part, I will begin by honoring the land of the indigenous people that were here before any of us called Connecticut home. The land of the Tonseks, Mohegans, the land of the Hamanasets. We honor this land today. I also honor every educational leader that has joined us today, and celebrate you and your heroic dedication by reaching out to our young people through one of the most challenging years we have experienced. So I honor you today. Inclusive and excellence. What is that equals? It equals that we need to understand our current reality and the challenges that we must address together to affirm the urgency that we need them both. We cannot have one without the other. We cannot have inclusion while excluding. We cannot have excellence by excluding. So I'm presenting you with a few numbers. The first one, 513,079. The second one, approximately 170. The third one, number one, just one. And I'm going to come back to these numbers before I end my remarks today. So as a nation, we find ourselves in the midst of the perfect storm, embodied by a pandemic that dictated our immediate isolation from the ones we love and from everything we knew. For many of us in this space today, many of us were directly impacted by losing a loved one, knowing somebody that was taken by this awful, awful pandemic. We are also in the middle of the social political unrest we all have witnessed and the racial injustice that has taken center stage as we witness the murder of George Floyd. So we must acknowledge the history that has brought us to this place right now. They have brought you to the second summit today. That means you had a first one. Because as leaders, we're always striving to achieve for excellence. As transformational agents of change, we always striving to support those ones who we serve. So we are here, and a history brought us here to advocate for change and commit ourselves for that change. So we also need to acknowledge that our classrooms have changed. The images, the ones we knew, are no longer the same. We need to acknowledge the challenges that we're facing as a community of leaders, educational leaders. All this has entered our classrooms, and we need to acknowledge that. We need to acknowledge that we need to measure the distance between us and our young people, our students, those who we serve. When before a hug was just by reach, now we need to use rulers in order to be able to measure our distance. We need to acknowledge what all this is doing to us. We need to acknowledge our reality. We need to acknowledge that Black Lives Matter. We also need to acknowledge that excluding our Asian American and Asian communities is not excellence. We need to acknowledge that our communities of color have suffered for way too long. Without that acknowledgement, we cannot have excellence. So I ask us today that as a community of transformational agents, we hold ourselves accountable to change what we want to see. What is that change? What is that change? What is that change? Dr. King said, right now, many years ago in the 1960s, he said it then, we are confronted with the urgency of the now. This moment right now may be the last chance we have to choose between chaos and community. And I am so glad that you are all here, because it is very evident that you have chosen community. We need to acknowledge where we are. We need to acknowledge our history. It is my hope that once again, we come together as this heroic group of individuals did in 1961. They boarded a bus, bounded to New Orleans to celebrate the 7th anniversary of the U.S. Supreme Court landmark court case, Brown versus Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas decision, the desegregated schools. They also challenged the laws regarding segregated interstate travel in the South. Their names, we need to know their names. We need to remember their names. James L. Farmer, James Peck, Genevieve Hughes, Joe Perkins, Walter Berkman, Francis Bergman, Albert Bigelow, Jimmy McDonald, Egg Black Hyman, Hank Thomas, Reverend B. Elton Cox, John R. Lewis, Charles Pearson. They knew that exclusion was not excellence. They fought for civil rights. They fought for human rights. I am hopeful because we must acknowledge the racism exists and we cannot erase it. I am so hopeful because this young woman, Amanda Gorman, saw the urgency of the now, and she shared with us the light is always there. We just need to be brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it. So I thank you for being here today because you are the light. We are carrying that light. So how do we achieve excellence? We do it by staying vigilant and focused. We must be vigilant and focused in order to achieve excellence. We cannot have inclusion if we do not stay vigilant about those who we might be excluding. The histories, as the young woman said today, we need to acknowledge the contribution of every single member of our community to the history. I am hopeful because the late John Robert Lewis said to us, together we can redeem the soul of this nation. Even though he is gone, he said, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand for what you believe. So I urge us today to do that. So let me go back to the numbers. The first number is the number of students in Connecticut. 170 is the total of individuals, leaders, transformational agents of change. They registered for today's summit, part 2. And the number 1, that is you. That is each one of us, and how each one of us can impact and influence those who we have around us. Because we are resilient. We are resilient. We are resilient as a group. We are resilient as individuals. We are resilient as a community of learners. We are resilient as a community of leaders. And we need to hold on to that. Because the precious generation of young lives that we have charged to guide deserve an inclusive environment that accounts for their uniqueness. So it is our duty to contribute to inclusive excellence by intentionally interrupting injustice, racism, bigotry, hate, and pain. I want to again thank you for inviting me today. Thank you for the partnership and for your commitment to work together in elevating equity consciousness by promoting advocacy through inclusive excellence on behalf of all of our children as we pay the future that they will inherit. Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you.